All righty, good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Deep Dive here at Central Oregon Recording. My name is Scott. I am co-owner and engineer here at Central Oregon Recording, and every Monday morning from 10 to 11, we go live to dive deeper into audio processing, in the box stuff, gear reviews, etc., all kinds of good stuff. So if you are watching, thank you so much. And if you enjoy what we do here, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It will notify you every time we go live. So welcome. So we are continuing a series called Deep Dive, where we're diving into basically audio processing within the box, plugins, gear reviews, etc. So we have been going through the mixing stage within a DAW. We talked about analog plugins so far, how to build an analog mix in the box. We have gone through some basic processing stuff, starting to build a mix, and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're just going to kind of continue on with this series, and today we're talking about serial and parallel processing. So last week we did a lot about busing, and we touched a little bit about some serial parallel stuff there in busing. But today I kind of wanted to go over just serial and parallel as it is. So whether we're doing compression, EQ, of course effects of any kind, all that kind of good stuff. So I figure we just kind of go over some of that. So let's jump into Pro Tools and take a look at what we've got going here. So here we are. So this is a different song than what we've been working on. So this is something that I did actually, I think, well, it would have been about a year, maybe even 2 years ago, for some of the classes that we do here on site, which we haven't been able to do as much, but we will be getting back into more of that. So let's just take a listen. So this is the song without vocals. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this. right, so let's see here. So we've got our drums here. So we're gonna talk about serial versus parallel. So we've got the drums lined up, and as you can see, EQ, compression, that's pretty much it. A little bit of reverb here and there, nothing too crazy. So this is a song from a little while ago. So let's just listen to these. Okay. So the first question is going to be, what is serial and what is parallel processing? So serial is in line with itself, right? So for example, if we were to take two compressors and put them one on top of the other. So like, let's say we've got an 1176 into an LA2A, which is a pretty common, pretty standard compression package, if you want to call it, where you're actually putting one into the other, using one to capture, say, like anything fast, transients, and you're using the other to kind of be more natural sounding with a slower attack and just kind of hold things together. So you're using two of them in series, right? Serial processing, where we're doing a little bit with multiple instances of something similar. So compression, EQ, etc. Now, parallel processing is when they're side by side. So we have, say, like a dry version and then a wet version. Or let's say we have a standard, say, kick, snare, overheads, whatever, and then we have another one that's like smashed. Or let's say we're processing a bass, for example, and we have a DI and a cab. While they are two different signals, they are the same instrument and we're processing them differently. So parallel processing, where we're processing things separate from each other so we can blend them together. So this is this has been known from a lot of people, like, say, New York style compression, or just parallel processing in general. There's a lot of engineers that do this, namely Andrew Sheps is one that does a lot of this. If you watch any videos where he's talking about the way he mixes, he uses a lot of parallel processing to add energy and excitement to things. So we'll take a look at the drums here. And so what I've got a kick. We have a kick sample, a snare sample. I have a verb going to our snare sample, our crotch mic, a mono overhead, standard overheads here, a drum room, tambourine, and a shaker. So if we look at the drum room, for example, this would be an instance of parallel processing. So basically what I did is just sent the items that I wanted to go to that. So you can see drum room 1 here. So we've got kick, snare, crotch mic, and the overheads are all going to the drum room here. So if I were to take off all of these, it's basically just a double of itself. So it's just doubling up, right? So basically we're sending a copy of the signal to a bus or something that we can then adjust and make what we want it to make. So now if we look, so see, I've got some EQ there, just rolling off lows and a little bit of highs. And then of course we just have a room verb that's 100% wet, a compressor compressing this, and then a de-esser to pull off the top end. So basically, I made a fake room. We didn't actually mic the room when we did this. We were down and dirty, really quick with as few mics as possible to get the sound we were looking for. And so I created the drum room after the fact. So this would be an example of parallel processing, where we're literally sending copies of things to a bus and we're processing that bus specifically for a purpose. So let's continue with that idea and let's make another version of this, but let's do like a smash bus so we can kind of take a look. So I'm going to actually use the sends that I already have because I pretty much use what's here anyway. So all I'm going to do, we're going to create a new track here. It's going to be a stereo aux, and we're going to call it Drum Smash. Drum Smash. There we go. Create. So here we have a drum smash. And actually for fun, I am going to do through another bus send. Let's see what we've got here. Lots and lots of sends. You know what? Let's use the drum space one, because why not? And I'm going to put these on pre. And I'll tell you why in a second here. Just going to get some levels set. So I'm going to actually manually set some levels here. So let's take this down by like 5 dB. We'll keep that the same, 5. We'll bump this. I'm just basically matching roughly what I have set here. Just kind of looking through here. These were all, yeah, perfect. That's what I thought. All right, let's see here. That was turned down by a decent amount. We'll take that maybe down by like that. Actually, if I left that there, we'll call that the same. We'll take these down by 3. So I'm kind of matching what I've got going on here on the actual faders, because again, because this is pre, because these sends are pre, it's before the fader, right? It's before what our faders are actually seeing. So if I solo up this, and again, we're going to make sure that this is coming from our drum space, which is right there. And we're going to send it to our sub master. So now we have just the drum smash soloed, which is just the drums. So it's just a copy of it. So now that we've got that, let's see what we can do with this. So first thing I'm going to do, let's go find a fun plugin. So here we've got Decapitator. This is from Sound Toys. This is basically a saturation and compression plugin. So it's a compressor with a little bit of EQ and tone ability. And of course, we've got different styles of drive or saturation here that we can mess with. So I'm going to bring this down just a tiny, tiny bit so we can listen to it. Okay, and then we'll listen to the drums without. So here's just the dry drums again. Of course, with the other effects going on, the room and the shaker, but you get the idea. So again, we've just copied everything over. So now we can process this in a way that we maybe wouldn't have done directly on the tracks, because we can get away with a lot more. We can compress, we can saturate, we can EQ, we can make it sound weird and crazy, something that we wouldn't typically do on the standard tracks. So we can go in and really kind of tweak and make this sound wrong, make this sound, just nasty, dirty, etc. But then we can blend it back in to add some energy or some movement to the drums that may not quite exist, or maybe we don't want to mess with the sound we have because we like it, but we just need a little extra. So with Decapitator, I'm going to start pushing up the drive here. So we'll try at 5. And I'm just going to find it till it starts to crunch, and then we're going to listen through all the different styles here. So immediately you can hear that's just like crushing it and just smashing with all of that delicious goodness of what I assume would be an API style. So let's kind of keep going. Some of those are pretty nice. All right. So let's mess with the drive and find something that sounds good. You can kind of see, like, you can definitely go overboard, but remember that this is parallel. So we're going to blend this in. But something I might actually do, I'm going to move this down. I am going to throw an EQ before this. And, you know, I'm just going to grab, let's see here. Oh, what's it called? There it is, EQ3. So I'm just going to roll off some low end, actually. We're going to go 18 dB per octave, and let's pull this up. Yeah, we'll say like right around 100 here. Let's see what this does. There we go. So the reason I threw the EQ in before is just to get rid of some of that farty low end, because I don't want to be messing up my low end too much when I blend this back in, but I do want the crunch. Now, I might go in and adjust that a little bit, maybe pull that that back a little bit, maybe to 80 or 60. We'll mess with it and we'll see. But I want to keep some good body and thump, but I don't want to get too farty. But I do love the sound of that crunchy snare and everything that's going on. Now, when we get to the cymbals and stuff, which are in the chorus, it might sound a little different. So we'll keep making adjustments, but let's keep messing with this guy here. And of course, you do have a low cut here too, and we have a thump. So let's mess with these. If I take the EQ out, so the thump sounds like it almost adds like a little bell or something right there at the cutoff point. So I'm going to use our EQ instead. I like that. So again, taking the high end off, so let's go into the chorus so we can really hear what happens when we hit the cymbals. So you can kind of see cymbals get a little brashy, but remember, we're blending this in, so we can get a little crazy with this. All right, let's try that right there. Okay, so we've got our drums back, and I'm going to pull the drum smash down, and we're going to blend this in and see what happens. So you can definitely hear it's adding some mid-range in there and stuff. So let's keep messing with this to see if we can get it the way we want it to sound. So I'm going to add another EQ for fun. Let's mess with this a little more. So I'm finding the spot that I don't really like. I'm just kind of pulling some stuff out. Okay, now let's add that back in. kind of a honky something going on in there. Okay, so this would be an example of parallel processing. So we're doing stuff to this drum smash that, again, we probably wouldn't do directly on the tracks because we wouldn't want to mess with the sound, because the sound's really clean. And this is something that you don't have to use all the time. I would probably automate this in like that to maybe come in the chorus just to add a little extra energy. Granted, we have some big guitars going on there too. So let's kind of take a listen to maybe going from the verse into the chorus, and I'll actually activate that drum smash. So let's come back here a little bit. I'll do it with the whole song. So here's the clean drums. And I'll activate the drum smash when the chorus comes in. Here we go. Out. In. So hopefully you can hear that when I took it out and in. It just adds a little bit of extra energy and push to the drums. So parallel processing helps us do this because, again, we can do whatever we want to that parallel bus. We can smash it, we can crush it, we can EQ it, we can throw reverbs on it, we can throw delays or, whatever we want. We can make it whatever we want, and we can blend it in and activate it or use it when we feel it's necessary. So like that in a chorus where we want to add some extra energy, especially like that with drums, we can add like this crunchy, nasty sounding drum smash in. And when it's in the mix, it just adds a little bit of extra push to something to kind of give it some energy and some life. Because I really like the way the drums sound in the verse. Let's go back to the verse here and take a listen. Like they're laid back, they still sound kind of big and smashing, but they're just kind of tucked back. But then when we get to that chorus, if I play it without the drum smash, they feel a little weak. They need a little extra something. So using this drum smash can really, really help to kind of like dial in what you're looking for. And again, this can be done with anything. I mean, you could do this with bass, with guitars, with vocals even. So if if I had the vocals in here, we could actually go through and let's say we actually did this kind of same idea. You can add, say, not just, extra vocals like doubles or triples, but you could actually go in and maybe distort the vocal, add another bus, and let's process that parallel bus with some distortion. Maybe it's telephony mid-range, something to kind of add some extra energy when you're pushing this to really help create a different sound when you're moving through parts of the song. And this really has to do with arrangement when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, is when you're moving from a verse to chorus or to a bridge, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And then how can you use some of this to help create some energy to kind of lift the song up? Because remember, the song has to go somewhere. We're telling a story, right? We're starting with an intro or a verse, and then we're moving to a chorus where we want bigger energy. Maybe it wants to be wider, needs to be more aggressive, and then we're coming back down. Maybe we're moving to a bridge, it needs to be more open sounding. So we can mess with this kind of parallel processing to really create something that make the song have movement. We're creating something that helps guide the song through. All right, so let's keep going. So that was something with drums, of course, but let's see what else we can do. So that was drums. Let's take a look at our basses here. So here I've got a bass DI, a bass cab, and a bass cab 2. And as you can see, all I did was have EQ on these, But let's listen to what's going on with these. So I'll just we'll come back here again into a little bit of the verse, going into the chorus here. So if you noticed, that bass cab 2 comes in the chorus. So, but let me boost these up a little bit so we can really hear what's going on here. Okay, let's look at this one. And these are grouped together. 1 second. Bam. All right. So there's our first bass. And if you look, I've got this rolled off at 180 hertz and about 3K. Let's look at bass cab number 2. So I did this was a bass cab and a bass DI, so we actually did mic everything. But as you can see, again, parallel processing. I've got 2 of the same instrument, 2 of the same source, but I'm actually treating them completely differently. I'm using the DI for kind of the attack and a little bit of the grind that was coming from the bass player, so from his actual bass guitar, from many pedals he was using. But then the cabinet had this nice thumpy kind of thick low end that the bass DI didn't, and I didn't want them competing with each other, so I EQ'd them separately and then again blended them together. We're processing this parallel, so we're blending these 2 together. Now let's look at the bass cab 2. So here the bass cab 2 has the similar or same EQ as the bass DI. So let's listen to what that sounds like, and again that comes in the chorus. Compared to the DI. So it's just a little woolly, it has a little bit more grind to it. Now again, I could probably go in and we could mess with this even more and add something. So if we really want that bass to stick through, let's go look at, we'll just grab the Sans amp, for example. Okay, basically just kind of getting some grind, some crunch, and then we're adding that in. So now, if I take that out, we can listen to just the bass. So again, we'll go, say, from back here in the chorus, or I'm sorry, in the verse where this is gone. So again, now in the chorus, because we're processing this differently, it's a parallel process. Now we can actually, again, blend that in, add that in to do something specific that we want. So again, parallel processing is so helpful when you're working with this kind of stuff, because you can tailor it to sound any way you want and you're not affecting the original sound. It's just something you can blend in to kind of create some energy. So now let's talk about serial processing. So for example, serial processing is like this when we're putting things together in a line. So typically when I do serial processing, I try not to go overboard with one specific element. For example, let's take a look at these acoustics here. I'll kind of back up. We'll start here at the beginning. Let's say, actually, let's go. Tell you what, let's go to the bridge. This is chorus into bridge, so I'll go to the end of the chorus. So these guitars are meant to be fairly percussive. So let's look at the dynamics I have going on here. So again, this is supposed to be very percussive. So let me do this real quick. Let's see here. I'm actually gonna solo. Actually, let's solo up these two here. We'll mono these up. Okay, yeah, that one's definitely loud. You can see it's actually not catching too much either. So let's go ahead and pull this threshold down a little bit more. So there you can hear it starting to catch. And again, so if we look at this, it's pretty big knee, so it's definitely smooth. So the knee, which we'll kind of go over compressors at another time. Basically, that just changes how it's attacking. Like if it's a really hard knee, it's like it won't compress until it reaches this point of threshold, and then it can start to compress. Otherwise, a knee makes it softer, so it starts maybe compressing a little bit early as it comes up and into your compression. But we've got it set right now, hitting about -3, which is where we want it. So like if you look at the meters here. So again, we're not doing too much, but this is where I could add in, say, another compressor to add another sound, another tone, another attack. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. See, let's scroll all the way down. We'll do something really crazy and drastic. So this is the Monster. This is from Slate Digital in their VMR pack. This is basically an 1176 with all buttons in. So very punchy, very, it just adds a lot of attack and etc. So let's listen to see what this does. And this is going to be a little overboard, but. So again, like it's adding so much and compressing and doing all this weird, crazy stuff. Adding a little bit of level 2, bring that down. So now we're just getting like all this kind of crazy attack. So this is something I probably wouldn't use per se like this. I would definitely, maybe back this off or use a different compressor, but that's overboard. But let's look at like the U73B. Again, it's set way too much. Let's with it off and back on. Crank the gain a little bit more. See, I'm just barely touching it there. And this is where serial processing comes into play, that you don't want to go overboard, because when you throw too much on from one thing, it can really kind of damage or destroy a sound really quickly. For example, if you're putting 2 compressors on, you can, if you're doing 5, 7, 10 dB of compression, that's so much compression from one. Try and slap another one on, it's going to start adding these weird artifacts and not sound very natural. So using different compressors for different things can really help. So I'm going to take the other compressor off, and we're going to take a look at actually doing something that I would say is normal, that I typically do. So we're going to grab an 1176 styled compressor and then an LA2A style. I'm going to take the LA2A out for now. So let's see what the 1176 is doing here. I'm going to crank this up a little. All right, we'll go into the bridge here. So again, just a tiny bit, basically just taking the top off. So I move the attack to go a little bit faster. So we're trying to catch some of those transients just to kind of like shave the top of those off a little bit and just kind of compress down a little bit more. So that way we can kind of control the actual attack when the guitar was really hitting on there. So when that pick's coming down, we're just controlling it. So now we can add in that LA2A to kind of add more of just kind of hold everything in place, right? So we've tamed the transients, the peaks. We've really kind of brought those down a little bit, and now we're going to kind of group everything together and just kind of hold it down. So let's see what we can do with the LA2A style. I'm going to bring the peak reduction down so we can listen to it here. All right. And let's see here. So we brought down. So again, not too much. We're doing a tiny bit here on the 1176 style. We're doing a little bit here on the LA2A style, just to kind of even things out a little bit. Because we're doing things in serial, so we can use the tools of this to kind of sculpt and create a little bit more and get the, for lack of a better word, the character from each compressor to kind of do what we want it to do. Like the 1176 is known as a fast compressor. It's known for catching transients and peaks. The LA2A is known for being kind of smooth and warm, more natural sounding. So we're blending those together to kind of create a new sound between the two. So, we could throw in another compressor if we really needed to add something else. But we can do the same thing with EQ. So I'm going to leave these where they are, but we're going to add an EQ here. I'm just going to add here. This is just kind of a proprietary kind of EQ here, but you can see we have a bunch of different points. So let's mess with this a little bit. So I did that, but let's add another instance. So you can see I rolled off some top end, I boosted a little 4K so for some presence, boosted a little 600 for a little bit more body, pulled down some of the 100 just to take away some of the boom. Now I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to put everything, or some of this roughly the same, but you see I pulled down 10K, but now I'm actually going to boost 10K with another one. It sounds counterintuitive, like, well, why would I cut and then boost the same exact thing? But with EQ, especially with this EQ or like a wide band EQ, this is definitely known for like a pull tech style EQ, would be another one I could pull up and we could kind of mess with. It has a boost and an attenuation. So, let's say, the slopes might be different depending on whether you're boosting or cutting things. So if a cut is, let's say, a little bit wider and then a boost is a little bit narrower or vice versa, you're going to get some different movement within there. So you can actually use it for different things to add a sound that you're looking for. We could even pull in, say, a different EQ. Let's grab, for example, an SSL style and then a Neve style. I'll do roughly the same idea. So I've kind of taken out, again, a little top end, boosted some presence, a tiny bit of body, and pulled some low end out. But now, since I've taken stuff out here kind of a little more surgically, I'm going to go back in with a colored EQ or an EQ that's a little bit wider sounding, and we can then take that a little bit further. Okay, I'm going to bypass everything that we just did, and I'll put it back in. So hopefully you could hear that difference when I was out and put it back in. It kind of brightened up. It just kind of came a little bit forward more. And again, we are doing this with serial processing where we're not doing a lot. I mean, we're talking, small amounts of dB moves, 1 to 3 dB-ish, because we're doing multiple instances of it. If I were doing this with one EQ or one compressor, I might go a little bit more heavy-handed when I'm working with stuff like this. But again, because we're doing multiple instances, I can kind of get the color, the character, the sound of these serial processes together to create something that I couldn't do with something by itself. But again, using a lighter touch, because we're continually adding to it. Like with compression, we're technically doing probably around 6 to maybe 8 dB of compression, but we're doing it with 2 different compressors. EQ wise, we're doing actually some fairly massive EQ moves, even though it doesn't look like it. But remember, we're cutting on one, we're boosting on the other, so we're kind of tailoring and trimming the sound to be the way we want it to be. And there's some really, really cool stuff we can do with that. And this is something that's done a lot, even let's say for vocals, for example, when you're recording vocals, if you happen to have outboard gear or go to a studio that has outboard gear, they might run, say, into a 1073, so a Neve style preamp, and maybe it has EQ, maybe it doesn't, maybe they do slight tweaks, maybe a little bit of top end, maybe cut a little bit of nasal sound, maybe a little bit of low, just very slightly. And then they're messing with, maybe it's an 1176 and an LA2A, maybe it's an 1176 and a DB160, DBX160, or a DBX160 and an LA2A, but they're blending maybe going through 2 different compressors to add a sound, or maybe they're going through a retro stay level, or you name whatever piece of gear or sound that you're looking for, but you can use those to your advantage because you're doing small moves with multiple things to create an overall larger picture. So let's look a little bit further here. I'm just kind of, again, we're just kind of messing with things here. So bring this back down a little bit and listen to these guitars now that I changed everything around. Cool. Let me go ahead and we need to bring our bass back down here. Okay, let's see what our drums are doing. All right, so we have all that going, which is sounding pretty good. I'm gonna take everything out of solo. Let's close up our drums. We'll close up our bass and our acoustics. So I want to look at one more thing here, and that's going to be these chorus guitars. So again, this is something I've definitely done before. We talked about last week. but helping to add space, because there are two different guitar parts, which makes it really nice. But we've got a guitar left and a guitar right. But if you notice, I actually have the verbs going opposite from the actual guitar. So you can kind of hear that that guitar is on the opposite side. Now, again, this is something that we could also mess with if we were, let's say we only had this one guitar. Again, another parallel process that we could do is just creating a copy of this and tweaking it, maybe adding a tiny, like we're talking like 20 to 40 milliseconds of delay, some weird like modulation effect, etc., to kind of create like a faux secondary guitar if we didn't have one. So there's some other cool parallel processing stuff we can do there. But the last thing we could do, let's say we wanted to process, say, the guitars totally separate, for example. So let's create a new bus. And we're going to go, yeah, we'll call this guitar parallel, for example. And I'm just going to, add these to just our chorus guitars here. Just you. Pull you over here. Okay. So I'm going to go back into our chorus here where these guitars really shine. So that's what we've got going on. Oh, and let me go ahead and make sure these are pre, so we can mess with this. Oops. Okay. Let's see, one side is definitely louder than the other. 5 dB probably. So let's pull that down some and see. Get just a little bit better position here. Okay. Oh, let me just make sure it's going to our sub. Okay. So what can I do here? Well, I want, let's say I wanted these guitars to get even wider than they already are. So they're already panned at 100% on either side. So we're kind of at the quote max that we can kind of push them out, but there are plugins and things we can do to kind of help them feel even wider. We can push them out further. And with parallel processing, we can do that without affecting these guitars. So we can maybe put it in, not throughout the entire song, but just in certain spots that we want them to be. So let's take a look at what that would be. So first thing I'm going to do, let's go find a reverb, and I'm just going to go find, let's see, actually let's go into devices. I just want kind of an ambient sound here. And I don't want all of it, I just want some of it. Okay, now I'm going to do something a little crazy here. So we've got our submaster here. I'm going to go find BX Solo. So this is a great little free plugin. I definitely suggest you go check out this from Plugin Alliance and Brainworks. I believe it's still free. It is really, really great. But it allows us to solo up the mids or the sides. So I'm going to solo the mids for a second so we can listen to see how much middle information still exists in this guitar parallel right here. So you can hear that there's still definitely some stuff in there in the mids, but I want to make this wider. So of course there are plugins that can do this. This is a little plugin that allows us to help create something a little bit wider. So let's see what that does. Let me take our solo off here. I'll take it in and out. So it's basically a widener plugin, kind of affects the phase a little bit and helps push things out. So you have that option, but if you have an EQ that can do mid-side, we can really start to mess with some really fun stuff. So what I'm going to do is, this is just a shelf, and I'm going to kind of pull the shelf up, say around 200, so we get this. But then I'm going to add a shelf on top here. Pull this back, maybe let's say around 2K. But I'm going to change this. So I have the ability with this EQ, for example, to mess with the EQ either being in the mid or on the side. And I want to pull the top end of the sides up. Okay, so it's in a space and we've boosted some top end there. So we can also solo up just the side so we can hear the difference here. So that's the side information. So that was going between the mid information solo and the side information solo, so you can hear that difference there. But now, what does that sound like with all the guitar stuff? So I'll kind of blend it in. And again, like I might increase a little bit more of that room sound there. So yeah, I'm making it brighter. So of course it's going to get a little bit louder, but I'm also kind of helping push that out a little bit more just to kind of almost make the guitars feel like they're just outside of what we typically hear, to kind of help push them just a tiny, tiny bit. And again, these are just chorus guitars anyway. So let's see what that does within the mix here. So again, we're coming out of the verse into the chorus. So I'll back up just a tiny, tiny bit so we can hear that. And I'll take that in and out so we can really mess with that and see what it sounds like. So jump into here. All right. So again, here it is. I'll keep it out for now, and then we'll take it in and out once the chorus has started. All right. So yeah, it is getting a little bit louder. I would definitely kind of adjust that, level that down. But because we're adding that EQ on just the side information, just pushing it out there a little bit, and there's some other plugins we could use to do the same thing, but we're pushing them out to the sides, just bringing up the high end, just to kind of pull them forward a little bit and almost have them kind of start to wrap around us. So this is something big because when we're dealing with EQ, and again, in processing, parallel processing like this, we can kind of go a little bit above and beyond. I could actually probably continue that, maybe pull a lot of the low end out, just have like this kind of sizzly high, or find the frequencies I'm looking for specifically that I want to boost, just to kind of help those guitars feel like they come out a little bit more. And you can play with reverbs and all kinds of stuff to kind of help dial that in and dial in the sound. But a lot of that stuff, you can kind of push things beyond the speaker, right? Beyond what you're actually hearing. So it makes it sound bigger and wider than it might actually be, all because we're just using this idea of processing things in parallel to kind of help create a new sound or something that doesn't exist normally. So I hope this was really helpful. Again, parallel versus serial processing. Parallel, go to the wall, go balls to the wall, go nuts with it, like just do whatever you want, because again, in the end, it's just another fader that you can then bring up or down to kind of help create a sound that you're looking for. You can bring it in and out. When you're dealing with serial processing, when you've got things in a line, multiple compressors, multiple EQs, etc., be a little softer with your hand when you're dealing with your effects, because remember, those add up. You can add multiple things together to create a bigger movement overall. So just be a little bit softer with your serial processing, but don't be afraid to do it. Just remember, you can use the tools for specific tools for what you're looking to do. So like a surgical EQ to cut, maybe a wide EQ to boost, fast compressor versus slow compressor, things like that, where you can really start dialing things in. Of course, you can always do this too with effects. Let's say a delay into a reverb, or a let's say a delay into modulation, or modulation into delay, depending on what you want to do. There's all kinds of cool things you can do there with serial processing to create some new sounds and new tones that you can use. Just remember, go a little bit lighter on your hand. And then again, go nuts on parallel processing. Make things sound nasty, ugly, dirty, things you would never listen to by themselves. Because when you add them in, that's what helps add that energy and excitement and width, whatever you're looking for, to really create something wonderful. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and make sure to ring that notification bell. You will be notified every time we go live. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm always trying to keep the chat up, so I'm always if you guys have any questions in the live when we're doing this live, but also I go back and look for any kind of comments. So if there's anything you want us to cover, want us to talk about, if there are things you have questions about, please feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you out so we can help you get better mixes, so your mixing career and the songs that you're putting out get stepped up to another level. I will see you guys next Monday. I think we're going to start diving in a little bit more about mixing versus editing next week. Really start talking about the differences and how editing and mixing are different, how they can really help you when you're doing stuff. And it's kind of a little maybe look behind the scenes of what some of the big engineers do, because a lot of times when we watch their videos that are on YouTube or what have you, a lot of their stuff is already edited, which makes it look easy, but there's usually someone in the background that has done all that editing for them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week and really dive into some really neat editing tips and tricks that you can do. And yeah, so we will see you guys next week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, evening, morning, whatever time you happen to be watching this. And we'll catch you next time.